Hi Guitar Warriors, welcome to my video where I'm going to show you how to play 120 chords with just 10 shapes. Now the purpose of this video is so you can get straight to playing some of your favourite songs without the need to buy chord books where they show you 500 or more chords, which leaves you frustrated or bamboozled, and stop that anxiety of God, how am I going to remember all these shapes? It's impossible. Or being left bemused and asking, how on earth do guitarists remember all these chords? Well, this video is the beginning to start breaking the secret of how we guitar players can remember to play up to over 1500 chords. Now you're probably thinking, is this guy for real? How can you play 120 chords with just 10 shapes? There's only a maximum of 24 frets in the guitar. Well guys, all it takes is some music theory knowledge, knowing your fretboard, and shapes. So with that said, let's get straight to it. Now there's different types of chords ranging from major, minor, dominance, diminished, and augmented, amongst many other chords. Don't worry about this stuff for the time being. This will be explained in another video and why different chord types exist. For this video, we're just sticking to major and minor chords. We'll be doing this with chords in G, starting with the majors. So for the first chord, you will need to start treating your index finger, or the first finger as I like to call it, as life's capo. And then you're going to bar it across all 6 strings, and you're going to press down on all 6 strings, so you should get a sound from each of the fretted notes. So we have all that compressed down just with our index finger. Remember, we're treating this first finger as life's capo. Once you got all that pressed down with your first finger, you're going to take your third finger, or your wedding finger as it's called, and you press that on the 5th fret of the A string, and then you're going to take your pinky, you're going to place that on the 5th fret of the D string, and then you're going to take your middle finger, you're going to place that on the 4th fret of the G string, and obviously your first finger barring across the 3rd fret, those should be playing the 3rd frets of the B and E string, and this should be your first major chord. So that's shape number 1 done. Moving on, we're going to look at the next shape of G major. Now for this one, you don't necessarily need to treat your first finger as life's capo again. You don't have to bar it, so all you necessarily need to do is just place your first finger on the 5th fret of the D string. This one's going to be a bit of a stretch. You're going to take your middle finger, you're going to place that one onto the 7th fret of the G string. You're going to take your pinky, you're going to place that on the 8th fret of the B string, and then your 3rd finger, or your wedding finger, will go onto the 7th fret of the high E string. There's another G major chord as it would be. Now, moving on, we're going to look at the next chord. Again, we're going to try and treat our first finger as life's capo. We're going to have to use that, be able to bar this. So what we're going to do, we're not going to bar all the strings. We're only bar it from the A string downwards. So from the 5th string downwards. And you're going to press down all the strings on the 7th fret. Now, the following fingers you're going to put down is going to be this. You're going to place your pinky on the 10th fret of the A string. Your 3rd finger, or wedding finger, will go on to the 9th fret of the D string. Remember, life's capo is going to be playing the G string on the 7th fret. And then you're going to place your middle finger on the 8th fret of the B string. And then, again, with that finger barring across that 7th fret, that'll play the 7th fret of the high E string. And that's the 3rd shape of the G major chord. Moving on, we're going to our next shape. Now there's 2 ways that you can go on about this. There's either kind of the more classical way, which is going to involve all your fingers going through it, or there's going to be a more kind of pop rock way where we only use our first finger and 3rd finger to this. I'll show you both types, so it'll be up to yourself which one you really want to choose. So, going through this, we're going to take our first finger, again, treat it like life's capo. That's what we're treating this first finger for most of these chords, yeah? So you bar that across again, just like we did with the previous shape. We're going to bar it from the A string And we're going to bar that across the whole amount, so you're going to be pressing down on every single string. Okay. Now I'll show you the first version of this chord shape, which is going to be, so you're going to take, so that's going to be barring across, and then you're going to place your middle finger onto the 12th fret of the D string. You're going to take your third finger, you're going to place that on the 12th fret of the G string. Then you're going to take your pinky and you're going to place that on the 12th fret of the B string. And then you're going to with this finger barring, that will play the 10th fret of the high E string. It's a bit of a squeeze, I know. For this next one, it's not going to be much of a squeeze because we're just going to use these two fingers to help us play the chord. Again, for this version, you're just going to bar across the 6 strings again, as we did before in the first version. Now, what you're going to do here, this is going to involve some bending with your third finger, your wedding finger. So, again, it might not feel comfortable, but you should get used to it once you've played it a few times. So what you're going to do is you're going to bar that. Your third finger is just going to bar across the D, G, B strings on the 12th fret. Make sure you lift it before it hits that high E string, because we need to hear the 10th fret of the high E string, which is what your first finger is barring. And what you should have is this. So it's the exact same thing what we did when we were pressing down with all our fingers, but this time round we are just barring it with the third finger. Now moving on, we're going to look at our final shape of G major, which is going to be here. What we're going to do, again, treating finger as life capo, a lot of these chords involve just using the first finger. It's very important. Now, what we're going to do essentially is we're going to take our wedding finger, third finger, and we're going to play the 14th fret of the A string, and then we're going to play with this finger barring just across the D string, G string, and B string on the 12th fret. Make sure you don't play that high E string, because then we're just going to get a different chord type. So make sure you don't do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to play, and we just get that in the brush drum. And that is the 5th shape of G major. Okay, so that's the 5 shapes of G major done. Now we're going to look at the 5 shapes of G minor. Now the only difference between major and minor is a 1-note difference. Again, I'll probably explain this in a later video when we discuss about the theory behind chords. Going back to our chords, the first shape of G minor is very similar to the first shape of G major. Again, it's only that 1-note difference. So, go through it with you. What we're going to do is that we're going to place our first finger, bar that across the 3rd fret of the guitar. Make sure you get all those notes coming through, it's very important. Then we're going to place our ring finger on the 5th fret of the A string, pinky on the 5th fret of the D string. Now the only difference between the first shape of G major and the first shape of G minor is this note here. We're not going to place that middle finger on the 4th fret of the G. We're just going to leave that off, and we should get all the notes that our first finger is barring. So if we play it all together, that's the first shape of G minor. Now going to our second shape of G minor, again similar to the second shape of G major, except there's going to be a 1-note difference, and there's going to be different fingering as well. So we're going to place our first finger on the 5th fret of the D string. This time we're going to place our ring finger on the 7th fret of the G string. We're going to place our pinky on the 8th fret of the B string, and then we're going to place our middle finger on the 6th fret of the high E string. And that's our second shape of G minor done. Going on to the third shape, it's similar to the position of the guitar, but it's entirely different fingering. So we'll go through it with you. We're going to place our middle finger on the 8th fret of the D, place our first finger on the 7th fret of the G, place our third finger on the 8th fret of the B, and then we're going to do a bit of a pinky stretch here, and we're going to place our pinky on the 10th fret of the high E string. And that's the third shape of G minor done. Now for the 4th shape of the G minor chord, it's very similar to the first shape of G major, except you're just going to take every single finger and you're going to move it 1 string down. So what we're going to do is we're going to bar it across from the A string downwards, and we're going to play it. Make sure you're getting all those strings coming nice and beautifully. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to place our wedding finger, third finger, on the 12th fret of the D. Then we're going to place our pinky on the 12th fret of the G, and then our middle finger will go on the 12th fret of the B string. Now with that finger barred, you should get that 10th fret of the high E string as well. And that's our 4th shape of G minor done. Now to our 5th shape, it's completely a bit different to the 5th shape of G major, but again similar in position. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our middle finger, we're going to place it on the 13th fret of the A string, and then we're going to take our first finger, we're going to bar that across the 12th fret of the D and the G string, and then we're going to do another bar with our pinky, which might be a little bit tricky, but we're going to bar that across the 15th fret of the B and high E string. And that is the 5th shape of G minor. And there you have your 10 shapes of major and minor chords. So now you're thinking, how does this equate to 120 chords? Well, this is where the theory and fretboard knowledge come into play. If we look at the guitar, we should know that each string starts with a different note when played open, which is E, A, D, G, B, and then E, that being E standard tuning. So we've got that under our belts. So let's delve into some theory now. There's 7 letters in the musical alphabet, which are A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And then we go back to A. Now, don't start asking questions on why does it only go through 7 letters. If you start going down the route of questioning, you might be going down a deep rabbit hole of history and might end up having to write your own thesis. Just accept this as what it is. Add to this, we have tones for each note. These are whole tones and semitones. The term tone helps us distinguish what kind of note we are playing. Each note in our music alphabet is a whole tone jumped to one another, which is 2 frets apart from jumping from B to C and E and F, which are a semitone apart. Again, just accept this as the rule. So in between the notes that are a whole tone apart, there are semitones that jump in between. These are either sharps, which raises the note, or flats, which lowers the note. So I'll give you an example of whole tones and semitones. Starting with our note A, so we know to get to the next note, which is B, we're going to have to go a whole tone up, which is two frets. So it's our B note. So we know that in between there's going to be a semitone. So to get to this note is either A sharp or B flat. So I'll give you an example. So going from A to get to going up there would be A sharp. But if we're starting on B, we go down, it's B flat. So A sharp and B flat are the same note. Just depends on which key you're in, depending if it'll be either be A sharp or B flat. So there we have our 12 notes of the guitar, which are A sharp or B flat, B, C, C sharp or D flat, D, D sharp or E flat, E, F, F sharp or G flat, G, G sharp or A flat. And then we go back to A again. So with this knowledge, let's just try and do a little bit of math now. So we've got our 10 shapes, the 5 shapes of G major, the 5 shapes of G minor, so that's 10. And then what we're going to do is we're going to multiply that by 12, which are the notes in our musical alphabet. So 10 times 12 is 120 chords. So now you have the knowledge and power. Whenever you see any chords that are major and minor that you might see in your favorite songs, that you can use any of these 10 shapes to not just play them, but play with the right tone of chords or just the right chord choice. So there you go, guys. I hope you found this video very informal. I hope it's been very useful to you, and I hope you go enjoy your brand spanking 120 new chords. Hi guys, thanks for watching. Please leave your comments below and please hit that subscribe button so you can keep up with all the latest videos I'm releasing very soon. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.